Hi everyone. I've been experimenting a wee bit with color, as I mentioned in a previous video, uh, and in particular with limited colors. And the previous video that I posted on Facebook, I think it's called "Working with Limited Colors." Um, it was just talking about using the Zorn palette, which is 4 colors, including black and white, and the possibilities of that. So that sort of led me to be playing around with my own palette and, my own paints here. And I thought it might be interesting to show you how one way that we can make a very small amendment, small change to a limited palette, and yet create quite a different effect, if you know what I mean. So I've just decided to sort of try to do that and let you see the results, if you like, and try to get behind why it happens. Um, as you know, or those of you who know me know, I believe in finding out why things happen. If you find out the why, then you've got the answer to how you control it. Discovering how to paint is one thing, but it's why things happen allows us to keep doing it over and over again and control it. So I'm going to move across to another camera here. I hope all being well. So if you bear with me while I do all these changes. Um, so hopefully you can see there the palette that I have, and hopefully the light is reasonably good and you can sort of see what's going on. I'm currently moving across gingerly to my my place here, including bumping my head on the light, of course. Anyway, just looking at what I've laid out here, hopefully you can see that. The Zorn palette, as you know, involved white, yellow ochre, in this case vermilion, and black, which again I'm going to put down here. And that we in the previous video entitled I think using limited color or mixing limited color, we did that. And I was sort of talking through it, but looking at these four colors here, you notice I have 2 columns of colors, but let's look at this first one down this side, down the left side. The Zorn palette has these 4 colors. Why it's so versatile for me is when we think about it, we have a white, which gives us our lightness. We have dark, black, I should say, which gives us darkness, I guess. We have also got a warm color or warm colors in the red and to some extent in the yellow ochre, and a cold color, which will be gray. As we talked about in the last video, Zorn, people asked why what did he do for blue? But he was using grays, which beside these other colors take on a certain blueness. So we have our cold option there as well as the warm option. And I also pointed out in the last video that tonally there's a step-by-step thing going from lightest to next lightest to slightly darker to darker again, and obviously the darkest being black. So all of the variations that we talk about when we talk about color, tone, temperature, saturation, all of those things are able to be done with a set of 4 colors, which is why they work so well and why there's all this versatility. So what I was thinking as a little experiment was to take the Zorn palette and make a tiny change to it to see how that affects things. So in this column, this is my variation, if you like, of this Zorn palette. What I have done is kept white and black. So they're not changing. But what I've done is the yellow ochre here in the original Zorn palette is not pure yellow. Obviously, it's a desaturated yellow. It's an earth color. It's a brown yellow or whatever, but it's not pure spectrum yellow, if you like to call it that. The red is a pure color. The red is either cadmium or vermilion, which is a very pure primary sort of color and is highly saturated with red. So what I thought might be interesting is let's change these two colors. So take the desaturated yellow, muddy earth yellow, and turn it to the pure, highly saturated primary color of yellow, pure yellow. This is cadmium yellow, I think cadmium yellow light, I think it is. And then take the red in the Zorn palettes, which was the highly saturated red, and substitute it with an earth red. And I don't know, hopefully you can see perhaps as I scrape it around here. This is actually Indian red. I could have actually used burnt sienna, but I literally couldn't find it. So I went with this Indian red, which is a red, but of an earth nature. In other words, a desaturated red, if you like. So based on that, what might be interesting is just to mix them now. So if we started as we did with Zorn palette, we're going to take a little bit of white here and a little bit of ochre, and we'll mix that up. And you know, there'll be no surprises in a sense, but I'm going to place it here on my piece of card, okay, like a reasonably big amount of it, so hopefully the color can be seen all right. Then what I'll do is just move down as before, take a little bit of white here, and to that add our red, or vermilion in this case, which of course will make a nice pink. So I'm going to strap that on there beside the ochre as the block. Then we'll come down, of course, with the white into the black, and of course we know what we're getting here, which is the gray. So we'll do that. Put a little bit of that on there. Make it a little bit smaller. I want to make sure we fit this in the screen on the video. So there we have these colors so far. Then of course the other permutation we have is our ochre. I'll bring it down to the bottom actually, just to mix it up with a little bit of red. So the ochre and red together. We'll make another color, which again, I'll put that on this side. No, I'll keep moving. I'll keep moving left to right. So there is our ochre vermilion combination there. And then let's mix our red with our black. So you might just about see it in the corner of the screen. Hopefully you can. So I'm mixing the red and black together. Not necessarily in particular proportions, you know, for this exercise, but you will see hopefully the results. So you get that lovely buttery consistency of paint, and you get that reddish but earth color there as well. So there are 5 combinations. Obviously there are more there. We'll do one more, which will be the ochre and the black. Okay, so we'll bring the ochre down here. Let me use that little spot, a little bit of black in there, and hopefully see what happens there. And we'll place that over here. And as I say, I'm scraping these so that you can see the lighter and darker versions of the color, if you want to call it that, but you can see hopefully what is happening with those. Okay, so what I'm going to do is move down the second column, in other words my variation column of these mixes. So I will take the same process. I'll take a little bit of white, a little bit of our yellow there, not too much, and stir that around. And you know, you can anticipate in a way what's going to happen here, but there it is below our previous mix from the Zorn palette, as it were. So obviously you've got this very, very soft, nice pale lemon. Let's then continue the process. This time we're working with white and a little of the Indian red. So this red that's in my palette is not a saturated red, but a desaturated red. So we have that. And we'll just scratch that down below the other one. We'll keep on moving. There'll be no difference, obviously, in the black and white. You know, will result in a grey. So in a way, but we'll do it anyway, so that it sits beside the thing. That grey might be slightly darker simply because it's added more black, but the result is essentially the same. Okay, so what we'll do now is mix the yellow and the red together, the pure yellow and our Indian red into that. So I'm going to mix that up. Maybe need a little bit more yellow really to see what's going on there. But yeah, so we'll try that. Place that there. Just scrape it around a wee bit so you can see variations in the tone. Then we will take our Indian red. I'm just going to rub this out actually, so give myself some space to work so that you can hopefully see some of this now. Take the Indian red over here, a little bit of black in it this time. So stir a wee bit more in there. You'll see it better when it hits the card, I hope. So there it is going on right here. Again, scratching it through so you can see the card coming through it, so you get variations of the color. And then again, I'm going to attempt to wipe this. It might be difficult because it's quite dirty, but I'm going to use that little corner here, and I'm going to mix this time the yellow and the black. Okay, so there's our yellow, little smidgen of black in that, and we'll scribble that around a bit. And we have this. So when we look at those two sets of colors, what's interesting is simply what has influenced them. In other words, when we look at the Zorn palette, we had a highly saturated red in that selection, so it was very dominant. Okay, and if you look at the line along the Zorn palette, you'll see there's a certain warmth in the colors. So if you run across the Zorn palette and you run across my palette, which was dominated, if you like, by the yellow, because the yellow became the primary color rather than red. So we subdued the red, we turned down the red because we made it the earth color, and we turned up the yellow, which is the reverse of the Zorn. So therefore, if you look along here, the yellowy color, if you want to call it yellow, is probably more like orangey in tone, I guess. Whereas obviously the pure yellow here is a much more yellow, pale yellow. So it's more leaning even round to the green end of the spectrum, whereas that's leaning more to the orange red. So it's warmer than that. Move to this one. Obviously it's pink, quite a vibrant pink. This color is a subdued red. It's a slightly mauvey sort of red, dirty sort of red. But again, cooler than this one, because the yellow is a cooler color. The yellow is moving towards the cool end of the spectrum, whereas red is obviously up in the warm end. So that result is a cooler red. Grays will remain the same, obviously. Then the next combination where we got this rusty color, look at the equivalent there. The equivalent there is a deeper, again, slightly cooler color. That's more leaning towards the orangey end. That's more leaning to the deeper, if you like, bluer end, for want of a better term, but that is certainly warmer. Then we move to the next color here, same thing. You can see red within that, obviously, whereas here it's nearly, if you like, a dark chocolate brown color, and certainly is colder and more to the bluer, greener end of the spectrum. And finally, when we looked at what we did with the yellows, that's yellow ochre plus black. And you can see you got this khaki color, this earthy sort of color there. And this one, which is obviously very vibrant green and going round towards the bluer end of green, if you want to call it that, whereas that is running round to the rusty, orangey, reddy end of green. So all of these colors are obviously warmer or more in the red end of the spectrum than these are. Hopefully this shadow that's just appeared is not disturbing you too much, but basically just have a look at that and think about it. That's really all I wanted to do. If I can turn my camera back around here for a little second, and hopefully the light was good enough to let you appreciate it. It's very poorly lit, or the daylight coming in at the moment's not great. However, I just thought that was an interesting little experiment. Change one color, or at least swap, as it were, two colors, I suppose, that you create a completely different palette, or a whole palette. And obviously all those colors that I've mixed can be mixed together, so they'll make more colors. So it goes on and on. But even if you do that, that whole range of color you have within the second palette, my palette, will be more of a yellowy nature and not as warm as the Zorn palette, which was dominated by the red primary color. So you can still have limited color palettes, which you can change with one color. You can substitute one of those four colors, and suddenly it dominates the rest. And so it might be that, for instance, if I very quickly go back to the camera, the other camera, if you can still see it, again, the light's not great, to be honest, but that bottom selection may be more suited perhaps to landscape. The top section may be more suited to flesh, skin, portraiture, or whatever. Not necessarily, but you know what I mean, that because it's leaned towards the green yellow end here, I suddenly have a nice limited palette that might be more useful for landscape painting. So have a think about that. That's really all. It's just me playing around with color and sharing it with you. So hopefully it's of some use. So thank you for watching.